Hello everybody, it's Monday morning, August 10th. This will be our last video clip for the term for Humanities 2333 for the summer term of 2020. We will chat Friday evening at 8:30 for 45 minutes, and then the final exam will be available for 48 hours this Saturday and Sunday, the 15th and 16th. So we'll chat at 8:30 the evening of Friday the 14th. Then the final exam will be available for 48 hours on Saturday and Sunday, August 15th and 16th. The material for the final exam will be class notes for class notes on lectures 9 through 16 that are available in the content area of the course website. 50 items, true, false, and multiple choice, reading comprehension, on those class notes. That will be the material for the final exam. Okay, to say just a few words about what we've got on the syllabus for this last week of the course. The class notes for lectures 15 and 16. Lecture 15 deals with mortality, which, if you didn't realize it, is another way of speaking about death. So here we are at the end of the course, and I thought it would be appropriate to talk about the end, because that's something we will all face sooner or later. I think we've mentioned at various times in the course, human beings put themselves at the top of the animal kingdom because supposedly our powers are superior to any other being in the animal kingdom, but a drawback of that is that we can anticipate our own deaths, and that, of course, can become a problem. We raise several questions. Is death a harm to the individual who's dead? And you might think, well, of course it is, but on the other hand, the dead individual is no longer there to suffer the harm. So philosophers have raised the question, is death really a harm to the individual who's dead? Now, there's no question that the process of dying can be a harm to the individual involved, especially if it is terribly excruciatingly painful. So there's no question about that. But the argument has been offered that once the individual is dead, then that person is no longer there to suffer harm. So is it really a harm to the individual or not to be dead? Next, would immortality be desirable? You might think it would be, but philosophers have questioned this. Some philosophers think that immortal life would turn out to be tedious and boring. Furthermore, that we need the realization that it's going to come to an end at some point, perhaps to spur us to get things done. I mentioned in the class notes a student once raised this in a section for which I was teaching assistant. The instructor raised the question, wouldn't immortality be desirable? And a student piped up, in what condition? Okay. What if you had immortality, but the aging process continued indefinitely? What kind of shape would you be in it eventually? Okay. Most philosophers would assume that if some kind of immortality were attainable, the aging process would have to be attenuated somehow, so it would not constantly deteriorate for hundreds of years. What about near-death experiences? Many people have suffered through near-death circumstances in their lives from which they have recovered, but at one point had an out-of-body experience when they were at the point of death, and they often attribute a great deal of significance to these near-death experiences. So what is the significance of those experiences? Are they evidence of life after death and a supernatural realm? I'm going to mention in the class notes, we really can't resolve that within the limitations of this course. Finally, at the end of those class notes, there are some brief reflections on what a good death would consist of. And for better or worse, it appears that many people under contemporary circumstances are not really experiencing a good death, worth thinking about as we perhaps think about caring for aging relatives. The last set of class notes, the class notes for Lecture 16, bring the course to a close on the topic of worldviews and philosophies of life. Now, with regard to worldviews, the main decision to be made is whether you're going to be a theist or a materialist or a naturalist, roughly equivalent to being a materialist. Then there are views such as transcendentalism and humanism that may try to fudge the gap between theism and naturalism. But there are Christian humanists, for that matter, so you will want to look at those notes. Finally, we raise the question of, with regard to a philosophy of life, what is it that makes life worth living? Now, there are some people who are philosophical nihilists who believe there is nothing that makes life worth living, and ultimately life is meaningless. You might wonder why people would take such a stance. Well, in the case of some thinkers, it's because they believe all the alternatives have been discredited. So that's the only plausible alternative, to be a philosophical nihilist. So you'll see a discussion of that and some of the alternatives to that in the last few pages of the class notes for Lecture 16. So that then will bring Humanities 2333 to an end for the summer term of 2020. We will chat Friday evening at 8:30 p.m. for 45 minutes, and then the exam will be available to you over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, August 15th and 16th. So if any problems or questions or issues come up at the last minute, please contact me at david.cole@opsu.edu. Other than that, we look forward to chatting with some of you Friday evening at 8:30. We hope you have enjoyed Philosophy of Life, Humanities 2333. We tried to reshuffle the course material this term and introduce some new material, especially about existentialism, life decisions, and mortality. So I hope if you move to do so, I hope you'll communicate with me about what you thought about all that. So, good luck. We look forward to chatting with you Friday evening. Hope you've enjoyed 2333. Take it easy.